Right now, off the coast of Singapore, engineers are completing the most ambitious port project in human history. $20 billion, 1,337 hectares of reclaimed land, and a fully automated megaport designed to handle more cargo than any facility on Earth. But here's what shipping companies and global governments don't want you to know. This isn't just about moving containers. This is Singapore's master plan to control the choke point of global trade and hold the world economy hostage, the Tuas Mega Port. When it's fully operational in the 2040s, this single facility will handle 65 million containers per year, nearly doubling Singapore's current capacity and making it the undisputed king of global shipping. I'm about to expose why this $20 billion investment represents the most strategic infrastructure project of the 21st century. Why China is terrified of what Singapore is building, and why every product you buy might soon depend on a tiny island nation's permission to reach your local store. Because what they're calling a port expansion is actually an economic weapon that could reshape global power forever. Let me blow your mind with what they're actually building at Tuas. This isn't just a bigger port, it's a complete reimagining of how cargo moves through the world. Engineers are using giant prefabricated caissons, some weighing 15,000 tons each and standing 28 meters tall, to create artificial land where there was once open ocean. But here's where the engineering gets absolutely insane. They're building this entire port 5 meters above sea level to future-proof against climate change and rising seas. That means every single structure, every crane, every building has to be elevated on a massive platform that can withstand typhoons, earthquakes, and whatever climate change throws at it over the next century. The berths are engineered for ships exceeding 450 meters in length, vessels so large they dwarf most city blocks. We're talking about finger-pier-style docks that extend deep into waters 23 meters below chart datum, allowing the world's largest container ships to dock simultaneously. And the construction materials? They used over 50% recycled dredged material from other projects, saving Singapore $2 billion while setting global records for sustainable mega construction. Here's where Tuas becomes truly revolutionary. It's the world's first fully automated megaport running on a private 5G network with AI-driven management systems. Autonomous vehicles move containers without human drivers. Electrified cranes operate without human operators. Every single container movement is tracked, optimized, and executed by artificial intelligence systems that never sleep, never make mistakes, and never go on strike. But the real genius is in the integration. The entire port operates as a single digital organism, with real-time data flowing between ships, cranes, trucks, and storage systems. When a container ship approaches Singapore, the AI already knows exactly where every container needs to go and has pre-positioned equipment to handle it with maximum efficiency. No other port at this scale is so completely integrated. While other ports struggle with labor disputes, human error, and coordination problems, Tuas will operate like a perfectly choreographed machine. Here's the financial genius behind Tuas that nobody talks about. By consolidating Singapore's 4 existing terminals into one mega facility, they're eliminating the most expensive part of port operations, inter-terminal transfers. Right now, containers often arrive at one terminal and need to be moved to another for onward shipping. That requires trucks, drivers, fuel, and time. It's inefficient, expensive, and creates traffic nightmares throughout Singapore. Tuas eliminates all of that. Every container can be transferred directly between ships without ever leaving the port complex. The cost savings are enormous, an estimated $2 billion in operational efficiencies over the port's lifetime. But here's what's really brilliant. Those savings allow Singapore to offer lower shipping costs than competing ports while maintaining higher profit margins. It's a competitive advantage that will be nearly impossible for other ports to match. Now let me explain why China is losing sleep over Tuas Mega Port. Singapore sits at the Strait of Malacca, the narrow waterway between Malaysia and Indonesia that connects the Indian and Pacific Oceans. 80% of China's oil imports and 60% of its total trade pass through this strait. By building the world's most efficient port at this choke point, Singapore is essentially installing a toll booth on China's economic lifeline. If Singapore ever decided to slow down cargo processing, impose additional inspections, or prioritize certain shipments over others, it could cripple China's economy within weeks. China has been trying to build alternative shipping routes through Pakistan, Myanmar, and the Arctic to reduce dependence on the Strait of Malacca. But none of those alternatives can handle the volume or offer the efficiency of the Singapore route. Tuas Mega Port makes Singapore's strategic position even more dominant, giving this tiny nation enormous leverage over the world's second-largest economy. Here's the part that should worry every government and corporation shipping through Singapore. Tuas Mega Port will have unprecedented visibility into global trade flows. Every container that passes through the port will be scanned, tracked, and analysed by AI systems that can identify patterns, detect anomalies, and build detailed profiles of global supply chains. Singapore will know exactly what products are moving between which countries, which companies are trading with whom, and how global supply chains respond to economic or political disruptions. That information is incredibly valuable for economic intelligence, trade negotiations, and strategic planning. Singapore will have a real-time view of the global economy that no other country possesses. And here's the scary part. Singapore has close intelligence relationships with both the United States and China. Depending on political circumstances, that trade intelligence could be shared with either superpower. Despite using recycled materials and electric equipment, Tuas Mega Port represents a massive environmental gamble. The project required disrupting 1,337 hectares of marine habitat, relocating coral reefs, and fundamentally altering coastal ecosystems. Singapore spent $6 million on coral relocation programs, but marine biologists argue that the long-term impacts on fisheries and biodiversity are still unknown. The port will also generate enormous amounts of air pollution from the thousands of ships that will dock there annually. Container ships burn the dirtiest fuel on Earth. Bunker fuel that's banned for use on land because of its toxic emissions. Singapore is betting that the economic benefits of increased trade will outweigh the environmental costs. But if climate change makes the region less habitable, or if environmental regulations become stricter, the port could become a liability rather than an asset. Here's the nightmare scenario that keeps cybersecurity experts awake at night. What happens if Tuas Mega Port gets hacked? The port's complete dependence on AI and automation makes it incredibly efficient, but also incredibly vulnerable. A sophisticated cyber attack could shut down the entire facility, stranding thousands of containers and disrupting global supply chains. Unlike traditional ports where human operators can take over if computer systems fail, Tuas is designed to be fully automated. If the AI systems go down, the port stops working entirely. China, Russia, North Korea, and other nations with advanced cyber warfare capabilities could potentially cripple global trade by attacking a single facility in Singapore. It's a level of systemic risk that's never existed before in global commerce. Tuas Mega Port will be the most automated port in the world, which means it will employ far fewer people than traditional ports of similar size. Singapore's existing ports employ thousands of crane operators, truck drivers, and logistics workers. Tuas will replace most of those jobs with robots and AI systems. The displaced workers will need retraining for higher skilled positions in port management, maintenance, and technology. But there's no guarantee that all of them will successfully transition to new careers. Singapore is essentially betting that the economic benefits of automation will be large enough to compensate for the social costs of technological unemployment. It's an experiment that other countries are watching closely. When Tuas is fully operational, Singapore will handle more container traffic than the next 3 largest ports combined. That level of market concentration gives Singapore enormous power over global supply chains. Companies that want to ship products between Asia, Europe, and the Americas will have little choice but to route their cargo through Singapore. Singapore can use that leverage to negotiate favourable trade agreements, attract foreign investment, and influence global economic policies. It's soft power projection through infrastructure dominance, but it also creates systemic risk for the global economy. If Tuas ever experiences major problems, whether from natural disasters, cyber attacks, or political instability, it could disrupt global trade more severely than any single facility in history. The construction of Tuas Mega Port is already transforming Singapore's economy in ways that extend far beyond shipping. Property values in Western Singapore have skyrocketed as investors anticipate increased economic activity around the new port. Logistics companies, manufacturing firms and service providers are relocating to be closer to the facility. Singapore is also developing the old port areas for residential and commercial use, creating valuable real estate in prime locations. The Pasir Panjang and city terminals will eventually be redeveloped into mixed-use districts that could be worth tens of billions of dollars. The port project is essentially a massive urban redevelopment program disguised as infrastructure investment. Phase 1 of Tuas opened in September 2022 with 11 berths and has already processed over 10 million containers, demonstrating that the technology works at scale. By 2027, 21 berths will be operational. Full consolidation is scheduled for the 2040s when the old terminals close and all of Singapore's port operations move to Tuas. But here's the risk. Global trade patterns could change dramatically over the next 20 years. Climate change, geopolitical conflicts, or technological disruptions could make Singapore's massive investment obsolete before it's fully realised. Singapore is betting that its strategic location and superior efficiency will remain valuable regardless of how global trade evolves. But it's a $20 billion bet with a 40-year payoff period. Other major ports are watching Tuas with a mixture of admiration and terror. Rotterdam, Los Angeles, Shanghai and Dubai are all planning their own automation and expansion projects to compete with Singapore's new capabilities. But Singapore has a significant head start and natural advantages that will be difficult to replicate. The Strait of Malacca location can't be moved. The government's ability to make long-term infrastructure investments without political interference is rare. And the technical expertise developed during Tuas construction gives Singapore a competitive edge. The global port industry is entering an arms race of automation and efficiency, with Singapore setting the pace that everyone else has to match. Singapore's government projects that Tuas Mega Port will generate massive returns on the $20 billion investment through increased trade volumes, higher port fees, and economic multiplier effects. The port is expected to handle 65 million containers annually when fully operational, compared to Singapore's current capacity of about 37 million containers. That increased volume, combined with higher efficiency and lower operating costs, should generate billions in additional revenue. But the real returns come from Singapore's enhanced position as a global trade hub. Companies will locate regional headquarters, manufacturing facilities, and logistics operations in Singapore to be close to the megaport. That creates jobs, tax revenue, and economic growth that far exceed the port's direct financial returns. Tuas Megaport represents more than just infrastructure investment. It's Singapore's strategy for remaining relevant in a rapidly changing world. As artificial intelligence, automation and climate change reshape global commerce, Singapore is positioning itself as the indispensable hub that connects Asia to the rest of the world. The port will handle not just containers, but data, financial flows and strategic relationships that define 21st century economic power. Singapore is building the infrastructure for a future where small, strategically located nations can wield influence far beyond their size. But success isn't guaranteed. Geopolitical tensions could disrupt trade routes. Technological changes could make ports less important. Climate change could make Singapore's location less advantageous. The $20 billion investment in Tuas Mega Port is Singapore's bet that geography, efficiency and strategic thinking can triumph over size and natural resources in the global economy. By 2040, we'll know whether that bet paid off, but right now, Singapore is building the future of global trade, one automated container at a time. And the rest of the world is watching nervously as a tiny island nation constructs the infrastructure to control how everything moves around the planet. We are committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more visionary builds.